Hey everybody, welcome back to Brighten-Up-Sunshine, where every day is a new beginning. Let's dive right into this. What if I told you the strongest power in America was never meant to be a politician, it was never meant to be a judge, or even the president himself or herself? What if the real shield of freedom was always meant to be you? Well, let's look at that. Today, we're diving deep into the roots of American power, into something that has been overlooked and misunderstood and, well, nearly forgotten. I'm talking about the militia. No, not just a group of armed citizens, but an ideal that liberty must never be left defenseless. A nation born in gunpowder and grit. Before there was ever a president, before there was a constitution, there were farmers, blacksmithers, and everyday folks grabbing their muskets, their guns. 1775, Lexington and Concord, the British came to seize the weapons. The local militia stood in their path, and with a single shot, a revolution was ignited. These were not soldiers trained by the states. Oh no. They were neighbors, they were fathers, they were patriots, and they believed freedom was worth fighting for. From revolution to constitution, after the war, chaos grew. Shays' Rebellion, 1786, broke out, and veterans who'd fought for freedom were losing their homes to taxes and foreclosures. They rose up, not against freedom, but against the government that had forgotten them, the British government that ruled over them. The rebellion was crushed, but it shook the nation, and out of that shaking came the Constitution, a document that gave the government power, but also gave the people something just as vital: a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. When the government tested its power, fast forward to 1794, the government passed a whiskey tax. Poor farmers rebelled. The Whiskey Rebellion entered in, and who marches in to crush it? President George Washington, leading a 13,000-man militia himself. That's right, the first president of the United States used a militia to enforce federal law. It worked, but it raised a very interesting question we still wrestle with to this very day. Who watches the watchers? And when the government flexes its muscles, who gets to say, "Enough flexing, government"? Can the militia go too far? Sometimes the militia was not the hero. In moments of things like Bleeding Kansas, a part of the Civil War, local militias acted violently, sometimes fueled by hatred and not liberty. And in 1921, at the Battle of Blair Mountain, 10,000 coal miners, many of them World War I veterans, picked up rifles and marched for labor rights. They were bombed, they were shot at, and stopped by federal troops. Were they patriots or were they rebels? A line between militia and mob is not always clean, but the heart behind it, fighting against oppression, that is unmistakably American. So checks, balances, and the branches. You've heard about the three branches of government, right? Legislative, Congress makes the laws. Executive, President, enforces the laws. Judicial, Supreme Court, interprets the laws. And what happens when one branch goes rogue? What if the president ignores the courts? What if Congress does nothing? What if the court makes a ruling but no one enforces it? It's happened before. Lincoln defied the Supreme Court during the Civil War. President Jackson ignoring a ruling on Native American rights. saying the court could enforce it on their own if they wanted, because his branch wasn't going to enforce it, which was the branch of enforcing. And FDR threatened to pack the court when it stood in the way of his New Deal. It actually backed down and started passing his New Deal law and legislation. The truth, when the government forgets its limits, the people must remember theirs. Why does the militia still matter today? The militia was not just a military tool. In fact, it was not a military tool. It was a warning label. Do not let governments grow unchecked. Keep liberty defended, not just with laws, but with readiness. Today, that ideal gets confused. It gets politicized. It gets twisted. But the original meaning still stands. An empowered citizen is a free citizen. An armed people is a final firewall between that freedom and tyranny. And a government that fears the people usually respects the people. Power, responsibility, and you. My final thoughts. This is not a call to rebellion. Definitely not. And this is not about violence. This is just history about remembering who was originally the ones to hold the real power in America. Under the Constitution, for the people, by the people. It's not in a courtroom. It's not in the Oval Office. It's not even in the Constitution. But it was supposed to be in you, the voter, the speaker, the defender of rights. You who watches history, learns from it, and speaks up before the balance tips too far. So this is what I've learned in my studying about the Constitution. What have you learned? Are we a democracy or a constitutional republic? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Until then, I'll see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, and share it. Let's keep the light of freedom burning and educate ourselves. All right.